Hey guys, welcome back to Mojo Fitness Podcast. I know it's been 2 weeks with no podcast, and I really apologize. I was on the road traveling, visiting friends and family back all over the Midwest. But I had already posted on my Instagram that I would be doing a podcast the next time I was available to do one, and I'll be back to Thursdays posting on my book, which I'm going to do Successful Coaching by Martens. That was my winter read over Christmas break. And basically, I'm going to sum up what the book is about. It's 20 chapters, how to be a decent coach, because obviously being a coach is more than just textbook. But it was super helpful in understanding and reflecting in my own journey of being a strength and conditioning coach, and I just wanted to share some tidbits from the book that were super helpful and made me re-question, and then kind of discuss what it made me re-question, just because it's super fun way to understand things we would like to change and things we'd like to be better about. So it discusses a certain aspect of the three selves, which are how I see myself, how the public sees me, and who I truly am. So those are the three selves, and how the public sees me, obviously, as a coach can be good, bad, or indifferent. We want to be good, right? Like, we want others to see us like we're a winning coach with a great personality, and like, we don't want to be bad-mouthed ever. Like, that's how we want the public to see us as coaches. We don't ever want them to think that like we're not loving, caring people. Then there's how you see yourself as a coach. And I know personally, for a reflection, this was a lot of inner work, basically, is what this book kind of helps you set up and understand. And then your ideal self, like how you want to see yourself. Or your true self. And that's just like, it was really insightful. Also, let me go back because there's so many sticky notes in here that I have, just because I wanted to talk about different things. It talks about having a coaching philosophy. So I actually took the time to create one. And let me talk about coaching philosophies. Coaching philosophy is based off of the beliefs in which you stand by and how you plan to obtain those objectives and beliefs, and like how you're going to make them be known. So one of my projects for my winter class that I took, in which I had to read that book, it was a really good winter read, entailed that I had to create my own coaching philosophy. And I think that was really helpful, just because you really should have one. And if you take the time to write it out, you can reflect on it, and you can always, there's never been a word that's just told you can never develop. There's always room for growth. You can always go back and change your philosophy. As you encounter things and trials as a coach, you're going to change your philosophy some, just because you want it to be identical. Well, not identical. That's not the real word for that. There we go. You want it to be authentic to you. Like, for example, I'm a Christian. Not good at it. I like to always say that, but so I have a lot of like values, like treat others how they want to be treated. Like the golden rules. Like, most of us do agree with the golden rules. Like, but also then you have to think deeper. Like, what kind of dynamic do you expect? What do you expect out of people? Like, what are your main goals as a coach? Is it just winning, or do you want to develop the player? Like, what is your goal as a coach? And taking the time to like write this out and discover who you want to be and what you want to be is probably one of the most helpful things I've done in getting a grasp of all the knowledge and information that I have just absorbed in the last year, from school to internships, just being able to really grasp who I am and who I want to be, so that I can lead others in a really authentic but productive way. Like, I want to lead people that inspires them, and you don't inspire people by, excuse my language, bullshitting who you are. So I've been working a lot on self things, like, for example, I want to be an authentic person at all times. I used to vape, which is super counteractive of what I want to be. I want to be a strength and conditioning coach for the professional level one day. And it's just like, how can I hold these people to such high standards when I'm not even holding myself to high standards, and I'm doing something so horrible to my lungs? So I did quit, thank gosh. But let me get into the assignment, because I think I'm deterring away from what I wanted to actually talk about, which was just where I see myself now and how I can't wait to develop upon it. So the first question for this assignment for me was, what would you describe your coaching philosophy? So I came up with, it is my utmost priority to develop players mentally and physically, to push individualized limits that benefit the overall goals for the future of the individual or the program. It is my job to create strong-minded individuals and mitigate injury for the overall health. I lead by example, and although I am not perfect, I expect the best efforts from each athlete. Respect is a mutual agreement among each other to create a team culture and chemistry to achieve any program goals. As growth is a lifelong journey, I promise it to grow better as a coach, as I hope my athletes promise to grow athletically. So basically, it's like an oath that you state. This seemed really big wordy, but every time I went and looked at other coaches that had made their philosophies, a lot of them definitely had some of them had to have a speech writer write it. It was just so like, I don't know, like, what are they actually trying to get at? So basically all I said to sum it up was, I expect my players to have respect for one another. I expect them to develop mentally and physically. Why? Because I'm a huge advocate for mental health and physical health needing to be, it's a correlation, obviously, but you need to focus on both. If one's good, the other's going to be good, but if one sucks, the other can't be good. So it's super important for me to talk about mental health as well as physical health, because physical is super important, but let's be realistic. 5% of high school athletes make it to the collegiate level. What percent make it to the professional level? And if whatever level I get to be working with them until I'm at my dream level, like, a lot of players that I'll be working with might not make it to that next level, which, unless that's their dream, that's okay. Like, even if it is their dream, it's okay. But what that just shows is that I have to also develop and prepare them for life after that sport. I have to show them how to stay healthy, because strength and conditioning, that's a lot of stuff that you can do to keep your body healthy and well and moving while you get older and once you're done with sports. As we've talked about with Coach Ira, there's a period of time after collegiate athletics, in his instance, where you had to find that love of just moving your body again. So my coaching philosophy right now, I feel very confident in just discussing that. I promise, and I know I'm not perfect, but I'm going to grow, because one of the favorite things I've ever been taught by one of my mentors, his name's Jack Erickson, was that coach 30-year-old JoJo will outcoach coach 25-year-old coach JoJo by a long shot. But imagine me, 22, will be 23, in comparison, how much better at 30 years old that I will coach myself. I will outcoach myself so aggressively. So that's something I've always, since getting into this field, found impeccable. Like the idea that I'm never stuck here. I'm always allowed to grow. And that's something that is presented within coaching and athletics very, very heavily. And it's so beautiful. Like, I can't believe that I was lucky enough to have a mentor that was like, hey, 30-year-old Coach JoJo will kick 22-year-old Coach JoJo's ass. And you're right, as she should, because that is the goal. Progression, not perfection. Perfection is unattainable. But I want to kind of talk about how I developed my coaching philosophy. Definitely just personal beliefs. Like a lot of stuff comes from just like I said, I have a Christian background and it's important to me. And that's just my spiritual journey. But I've also been in therapy since I was 15 years old. So I've had a lot of self-awareness and self-reflection to do. And so the only thing left now is to get some experience so I can go through important issues that might arise as a coach so I can address those. And then, like, for example, you might be like, JoJo, what coaching philosophy problems are you going to run into? Okay, your star player is using steroids and you know about it. You also know the long-term effects of the use of steroids and how negative that can become. You also know that on top of your star player doing those things, so is some of your not so great players, your not so well performing players are also doing those steroids. Just because your star player is doing it, do you allow your star player to get away with it? Or do you take initiative and actually act on the fact that, hey, I'm against steroid use. Hey, I want my athletes to always be able to grow and be better. This is going to hinder that. It just comes down to when those kind of situations, or maybe not even so serious like a steroid use, but just team drama. Like, not every player is going to be besties. How are you going to be able to overcome when you say everyone needs to have respect or everyone needs to treat each other how they would want to be treated? You know, how do you overcome those things? And that's what comes with experience and being able to navigate and live through it, and why it's important to also understand your coaching philosophy is going to develop just like you are. I would like to talk about how I've had horrible coaches and I've had fantastic coaches, and how I've taken from both of them, and how I can see how both of them have room to work on, because everyone's a project. Nobody is a perfect little house, you know? We all have things to do and we all have things to work on. And I think of my high school basketball coach in the nicest terms possible, because I don't want to bash. Horrible. Had no clue how to work with teenage girls to create a culture that would develop a program. You know, the basketball program as women should have been able to be developed because we were a well-performing team. We won our sectionals, and I believe they won sectionals after that 2 or 3 years in a row. But that came from basic talent that was on the team. It did not come from a development. And a lot of us had played together. And with that being said, like, if we had taken the time compared to another basketball coach I had in high school, that coach took the time to work with us. He did start with us in middle school some, doing travel leagues and stuff and working fundamentals, but it wasn't just like the physicalities, it was just how he went about thinking each player. Like, he would take the time to say hello to each player. He would take the time. It's the small things, really, because getting into coaching style and philosophy is kind of just your style in all of the spectrums of coaching. If you have an authoritative style where you demand respect and do not give a hell how your athletes feel, you might get some well performance, but you're going to put fear into these individuals. And at the end of the day, they're an adult, or they are a human at least, and they just, not saying that you shouldn't have an authoritative approach at times, but always having an authoritative approach and style in coaching just does not work. Whereas also being too lenient does not work. You need to have a good in-between where you can ask your athletes, how are you guys feeling today? And if they're honest that you beat them up too hard at practice yesterday, you need to go a little bit easier, because you're not going to get the results on either end if you just put your foot down and say, well, I said, because why would you? With that being said, the book, if you can't tell, I'm getting like all worked up, really has a lot of good, insightful information in it, especially if you want to become a coach. So with that being said, Successful Coaching by Rainer Martens. It was fantastic. One more time, Successful Coaching by Rainer Martens. It's going to give anyone who wants to become a coach a good bare backbone, because it's a very easy read. It is textbook-like, but it's very easy read to understand, like, basic principles of being a good leader. And with that, we're Mojo Jojo over and out.